El padre León XIV ajustó su alba blanca, cuyos bordes brillaban bajo la luz suave de las velas que adornaban el altar de la parroquia de Santa María de Guadalupe, un templo antiguo enclavado en el corazón de un pequeño pueblo mexicano. El aire estaba impregnado del aroma dulce de los lirios blancos que decoraban los bancos, y las imágenes sagradas parecían observar con benevolencia desde sus nichos. Era un día especial. La boda de Sofía Ramírez y Diego Morales, una joven pareja conocida por su bondad y devoción, estaba programada para comenzar en menos de una hora. Los primeros invitados ya llegaban. Sus risas y murmullos llenaban el atrio con una energía festiva. Sin embargo, cuando el reloj marcó las 3 de la tarde, un presentimiento extraño comenzó a inquietar al padre León. Sus 15 años de ministerio le habían enseñado a confiar en su intuición, y algo en la atmósfera le susurraba que este no sería un día cualquiera. Mientras revisaba el misal en la sacristía, Mateo, el joven sacristán de rostro aniñado, irrumpió con los ojos abiertos de par en par, su voz temblorosa rompiendo el silencio. «Padre, hay problemas afuera. Un grupo de personas no parecen invitados. Están causando alboroto frente a la iglesia». León frunció el ceño. Había enfrentado situaciones difíciles antes, disputas familiares, críticas de escépticos, incluso algún borracho que interrumpía la misa dominical. Pero el tono de Mateo, cargado de urgencia, le advirtió que esto era diferente. Sin perder la calma, se dirigió hacia la puerta principal, donde los primeros invitados ya se congregaban, algunos ajustándose los sombreros y otros intercambiando saludos cordiales. Al salir al atrio, el panorama cambió drásticamente. Frente a las puertas de madera tallada de la iglesia, un grupo de unas 20 personas vestidas completamente de negro formaba un semicírculo intimidante. Sostenían pancartas con símbolos extraños, estrellas invertidas, frases garabateadas en letras rojas que denunciaban a la iglesia como una farsa. Sus gritos resonaban en el aire, un coro desordenado de consignas que helaba la sangre. «La religión es una mentira, no permitiremos esta farsa», gritó una mujer joven al frente del grupo. Su cabello negro, teñido con destellos púrpura, caía sobre sus hombros, y su rostro, adornado con múltiples perforaciones, estaba crispado por una furia visceral. Era Alejandra, la líder del grupo, cuya presencia irradiaba una mezcla de desafío y dolor contenido. Los invitados retrocedieron, algunos murmurando entre sí, otros aferrándose a sus rosarios con dedos nerviosos. León respiró hondo, sintiendo el peso de su vocación. En su formación en el seminario de Guadalajara, le habían enseñado que un sacerdote debe ser un faro en la tormenta, pero esta tormenta parecía más oscura de lo habitual. Los manifestantes intensificaron sus gritos, y algunos comenzaron a golpear tambores improvisados hechos de latas, creando un estruendo que se mezclaba con cánticos que sonaban como una parodia de latín. «Fuera los hipócritas, la verdad prevalecerá», vociferó un hombre corpulento con tatuajes que cubrían sus brazos, sus ojos brillando con un fervor casi fanático. León permaneció en el umbral, su figura serena contrastando con el caos. Recordó las palabras de su mentor, el obispo don Felipe Guzmán. Un sacerdote no solo guía a su rebaño, sino que lo protege, incluso cuando el lobo está a las puertas. A lo lejos, divisó un automóvil adornado con flores blancas acercándose lentamente. Era el coche que traía a Sofía y a Diego. El tiempo se agotaba. «Mateo», susurró sin apartar la vista del grupo, «llama a la policía municipal. Hazlo con discreción, no queremos que esto se salga de control». Mateo asintió, su rostro pálido, y corrió hacia la sacristía. León se santiguó, pidiéndole a la Virgen de Guadalupe fuerza y claridad, y dio un paso adelante. Los manifestantes lo notaron de inmediato, y sus gritos se volvieron más agresivos. «Ahí viene el charlatán», gritó Alejandra, señalándolo con un dedo acusador. «Dile a tu Dios que no le tememos». Los invitados comenzaron a murmurar, algunos considerando retirarse ante la creciente tensión. Una mujer mayor, con un rebozo azul, se persignó y comenzó a rezar en voz baja. León levantó una mano, pidiendo calma a los presentes. «Señores», dijo con voz firme pero respetuosa, «esta es una casa de Dios, un lugar donde hoy celebramos el amor de dos jóvenes. Les pido, con todo respeto, que permitan que esta ceremonia se lleve a cabo en paz». Alejandra soltó una carcajada amarga, sus ojos brillando con desprecio. «¿Amor? ¿Paz? Todo eso es una ilusión. La Iglesia solo vende mentiras para controlar a los débiles. Sus palabras resonaron, y algunos manifestantes aplaudieron, mientras otros golpeaban sus tambores con más fuerza. León sintió su corazón acelerarse, pero mantuvo su compostura. Había enfrentado críticas antes, pero esta furia parecía alimentada por algo más profundo, algo personal. En el automóvil, Sofía, con su vestido blanco heredado de su madre, observaba la escena con lágrimas contenidas. Diego, a su lado, apretaba los puños, su rostro tenso por la impotencia. «¿Qué está pasando, papá?», preguntó Sofía a su padre Javier, un comerciante respetado en el pueblo, que conducía el coche en silencio. Javier negó con la cabeza, sus ojos fijos en el grupo de manifestantes. «No lo sé, hija, pero no voy a dejar que nadie arruine tu día». El vehículo se detuvo a pocos metros de la iglesia y Sofía pudo ver la figura serena del padre León enfrentándose al grupo. Diego tomó su mano. «Tenemos que hacer algo, Sofía. No podemos quedarnos aquí mirando». Ella asintió, aunque el miedo le apretaba el pecho. León, mientras tanto, dio otro paso hacia los manifestantes, su voz resonando con autoridad tranquila. «No sé qué los ha traído aquí, pero este no es el lugar ni el momento para expresar su enojo. Hay familias, niños, personas que solo quieren celebrar un día especial». Alejandra lo interrumpió, su voz cortante como un cuchillo. «Los niños deben saber la verdad, deben saber que la religión es una cadena que los esclaviza». Algunos invitados retrocedieron aún más, y un par de hombres jóvenes comenzaron a acercarse, como si estuvieran considerando intervenir físicamente. León levantó ambas manos. «Por favor, mantengan la calma», ordenó con una autoridad que silenció a la multitud por un instante. Su mente trabajaba rápido, recordando las enseñanzas de sus años en el seminario. ¿Qué haría Cristo en este momento? ¿Cómo enfrentaría el odio sin sucumbir a él? En ese instante, una figura frágil emergió de entre los invitados. Era doña Rosa, una mujer de unos 70 años, con el cabello blanco recogido en un moño y un bastón que la ayudaba a caminar. Había sido catequista en la parroquia durante décadas y era conocida por su sabiduría y su corazón generoso. «Jóvenes», dijo con voz temblorosa pero firme, dirigiéndose a los manifestantes, «no sé qué dolor los ha traído aquí, pero hoy es un día de alegría para mi sobrina Sofía y su prometido. ¿Van a negarle a una vieja como yo la felicidad de ver a mi familia unida?». Alejandra la miró con desdén. «Vieja ignorante, has desperdiciado tu vida creyendo en cuentos». Pero las palabras de doña Rosa tocaron a algunos de los manifestantes más jóvenes, que intercambiaron miradas de incomodidad. Uno de ellos, un chico delgado con una bufanda negra, bajó su pancarta, como si dudara de su propósito. León aprovechó el momento. «Alejandra», dijo, dirigiéndose directamente a la líder, «puedo ver que eres una persona apasionada, pero el odio no construye nada. Permíteme hablar contigo, no como sacerdote, sino como alguien que quiere entender tu dolor». Alejandra lo miró fijamente, sorprendida por su tono. No estaba acostumbrada a que alguien le hablara sin miedo o condescendencia. «No necesito tu compasión», respondió, pero su voz tembló ligeramente, traicionando su fachada de fortaleza. Los tambores se detuvieron por un momento y el silencio se apoderó del atrio. En ese instante, 3 patrullas de la policía municipal llegaron, sus luces parpadeando en la tarde tranquila. El comandante Torres, un hombre de mediana edad con el rostro curtido por años de servicio, bajó de su vehículo y se acercó a León. «Padre, recibimos el reporte. ¿Qué está pasando aquí?». Los manifestantes comenzaron a gritar consignas contra la policía, acusándolos de ser cómplices de la opresión. Algunos sacaron cadenas y las agitaron amenazadoramente. León mantuvo la calma. «Comandante, solo queremos celebrar una boda. Estas personas tienen derecho a expresar su opinión, pero no a bloquear el acceso a la iglesia». Torres evaluó la situación, su mano descansando cerca de su radio. Conocía al padre León desde hacía años y sabía que era un hombre de paz. «Señores», dijo dirigiéndose a los manifestantes, «pueden protestar, pero deben permitir el paso libre. Si no cooperan, tendremos que tomar medidas». Alejandra miró a su grupo, notando que algunos comenzaban a retroceder. La llegada de la policía había cambiado la dinámica, y la seguridad en su liderazgo empezaba a desmoronarse. «No nos rendiremos», gritó el hombre corpulento, pero su voz carecía de la convicción inicial. León dio un paso más cerca de Alejandra, manteniendo una distancia respetuosa. Alejandra, no sé qué te ha herido, pero puedo ver que tu dolor es real. Permíteme ayudarte a llevar esa carga, aunque sea por un momento. Sus palabras, pronunciadas con una sinceridad que atravesaba las barreras, hicieron que Alejandra dudara. Por primera vez, sintió que alguien la veía más allá de su rabia. «No sabes nada de mí», murmuró, pero su tono ya no era tan afilado. «Quiero saber», respondió León. «Quiero entender por qué sientes que este es el único camino». En ese momento Sofía y Diego bajaron del automóvil. Sofía, con su vestido blanco ondeando al viento, caminó hacia el grupo con paso decidido, seguida por Diego, que mantenía una mano protectora sobre su hombro. «Padre León», dijo Sofía, su voz clara a pesar del temblor, «no queremos que esto termine en violencia, queremos hablar». Los manifestantes la miraron, algunos con burla, otros con curiosidad. Alejandra, sin embargo, pareció desconcertada por la valentía de la novia. «¿Por qué no están furiosos?», preguntó, casi para sí misma. «Porque hoy es un día de amor», respondió Diego, su voz firme pero amable. «Y creemos que el amor puede sanar, incluso lo que parece imposible». El atrio de la iglesia se sumió en un silencio expectante. Los tambores habían cesado y las pancartas comenzaron a bajar. León sabía que este era el momento decisivo. Alejandra dijo: «Tú decides qué pasa ahora. Puedes quedarte y seguir gritando o puedes elegir escuchar. Pero sea cual sea tu decisión, esta boda se llevará a cabo, porque el amor no se detiene ante el odio». Las palabras del sacerdote resonaron, y por un instante el mundo pareció contener el aliento, esperando la respuesta de Alejandra. The tension outside the parish of Santa María de Guadalupe hung thick in the air, a storm of emotions ready to erupt. Father León XIV stood at the threshold of the church, his white vestments a stark contrast to the sea of black-clad protesters led by Alejandra. Her piercing gaze, framed by dark makeup and purple-tinted hair, burned with defiance, but Father León could sense a flicker of something deeper pain, perhaps, or a longing buried beneath her anger. The crowd of wedding guests, numbering nearly 100, watched in uneasy silence, their festive mood shattered by the protesters' chants and the clanging of makeshift drums. Sofía and Diego, still in their flower-adorned car a short distance away, exchanged worried glances, their dream wedding teetering on the edge of chaos. The police, led by Commander Torres, stood ready, their presence adding a new layer of pressure. Father Leó's heart raced, but his voice remained steady as he addressed Alejandra. "I see your pain," he said, his words cutting through the noise. "I don't know what brought you to this point, but I want to understand. Will you let me?" Alejandra's laugh was sharp, almost brittle. "Understand? You a priest? You're part of the system that destroyed my family." Her accusation hung in the air, and the protesters roared in agreement, their voices rising like a wave. But Father León didn't flinch. He had faced doubt and anger before, but this felt personal, raw, as if Alejandra's words were a cry from a wound that had never healed. The church doors loomed behind him, a symbol of sanctuary now under siege, and he knew the next few moments would decide whether this day would end in peace or pandemonium. Alejandra stepped closer, her eyes locked on Father León's. "My mother," she began, her voice trembling with a mix of rage and sorrow, "was a devout woman. She gave everything to this church, her time, her faith, her heart. But when she uncovered a scandal, when she dared to speak out about a priest's wrongdoings, your precious institution turned its back on her. They called her a liar, a troublemaker. She lost her community, her hope, and eventually, herself." The crowd gasped as Alejandra's voice broke, revealing the depth of her grief. Father León felt a pang in his chest, his mind racing to process her words. He had heard stories of such failures within the church, and they weighed heavily on him. "I'm deeply sorry for what happened to your mother," he said, his voice soft but resolute. "No one should endure such betrayal, but I'm not here to defend those who failed her. I'm here to listen, to help, if you'll let me." Alejandra's eyes narrowed, searching his face for any hint of deception, but she found none. The sincerity in his gaze unsettled her, cracking the armor she had built around her heart. Sofía, still clutching Diego's hand, stepped out of the car, her white dress catching the late afternoon light. Diego followed, his jaw set but his eyes filled with a quiet determination. "Father, we don't want this to turn into a fight," Sofía said, her voice steady despite the fear in her heart. She turned to Alejandra. "I don't know what you've been through, but this is our day, a day we've planned for months. Can we talk? Can we find a way to make this right?" The crowd murmured, some in shock at Sofía's boldness, others in admiration. Alejandra stared at the bride, her defiance wavering. "Why would you talk to me?" she asked, her voice laced with suspicion. "I'm here to ruin your day." Diego stepped forward, his presence grounding. "Because we believe in second chances," he said, "and because we can see you're hurting, that matters to us." Doña Rosa, the elderly catechist, leaned on her cane as she approached, her weathered face etched with compassion. "Alejandra," she said, her voice carrying the weight of years, "I lost my brother to the church's mistakes. He was a boy when a priest hurt him, and the shame drove him away from us, from God. I know what it's like to feel betrayed by the place you once called home." Her words struck Alejandra like a thunderbolt, and for a moment the protesters' chants faltered. The young man with the black scarf, who had lowered his sign earlier, looked at Alejandra, his expression uncertain. Maybe we're going too far," he muttered, barely audible. Alejandra shot him a glare, but her resolve was weakening. The unity of her group began to fracture as more protesters exchanged uneasy glances, their purpose shaken by the unexpected empathy before them. Father León seized the moment. "Alejandra, you don't have to carry this pain alone," he said, his voice a beacon in the storm. "You're standing here because you want justice, but justice doesn't come from tearing others down. Let us show you that there's still good here, that there are people who care." Alejandra's hands trembled, her fists clenched around the edge of her banner. "You don't get it," she said, her voice cracking. "My mother took her own life because of what your church did. She stood up for the truth, and they crushed her. How can I trust anything you say?" The raw honesty of her words silenced the crowd. Even Commander Torres, who had been ready to intervene, paused, sensing the gravity of the moment. Father León took a deep breath, his heart aching for Alejandra's loss. "I can't undo the past," he said, "but I can promise you that I will listen, that I will stand with you in your pain, not against you." Embra. Sofia, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, stepped closer to Alejandra. "I had a cousin who went through something similar," she said softly. She was shunned by her parish when she spoke out about an injustice. It broke her for a long time. But she found healing, not in anger, but in people who showed her kindness. "Let us be those people for you." Alejandra's breath hitched, her defenses crumbling under the weight of Sofia's compassion. The protesters behind her began to disperse, some slipping away into the lengthening shadows, their resolve shaken by the unfolding scene. The man with the tattoos, who had been so vocal earlier, muttered something to Alejandra and walked off, leaving her standing alone at the center of the semicircle. Doña Rosa placed a gentle hand on Alejandra's arm. "Child, I've seen a lot in my 70 years, she said. "I've seen the church fail, but I've also seen it heal. You don't have to believe in God to believe in the goodness of people. Stay with us, just for a moment, and see." Alejandra's eyes darted between Doña Rosa, Sofia, and Father León, her mind a battlefield of conflicting emotions. The drums had stopped, and the air was heavy with anticipation. Commander Torres stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "Señora, I need to ensure these people can enter the church. You can protest, but you cannot block their way. Please, make a choice." Alejandra's shoulders slumped, the fight draining out of her. "I don't know how to stop," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "This anger, it's all I've had for so long." Father León knelt slightly to meet her gaze, his eyes warm with understanding. "You don't have to stop alone," he said. "Let us walk with you, even if it's just a few steps." The sincerity in his words pierced through Alejandra's defenses, and for the first time she felt seen not as a rebel, not as a threat, but as a person carrying an unbearable burden. Sofia reached out, her hand hovering near Alejandra's. "Stay for the wedding," she said. "Not to agree with us, but to see that there's still hope, even after everything you've lost." Alejandra looked at Sofia's outstretched hand, then at the church doors, where the light from within spilled out, warm and inviting. The crowd held its breath, waiting for her decision. The young man with the scarf, now standing at the edge of the group, called out softly, "Alejandra, maybe it's time to let go." His words, tentative but honest, were the final push. Alejandra's banner slipped from her hands, falling to the ground with a soft thud. Tears welled in her eyes, but she fought them back, her pride warring with her vulnerability. "I'll stay," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper, "but only to see what you're all about." The crowd exhaled, a collective release of tension. Sofia smiled, her eyes shining with relief. "That's enough," she said. "That's more than enough. Doña Rosa gestured toward a bench at the back of the church. "Come, sit with me," she said. "You don't have to say a word, just be here." As Alejandra took her first hesitant step toward the church, the remaining protesters dispersed, their purpose unraveling in the face of compassion. Father León looked at Sofia and Diego, gratitude in his eyes. "You've shown more courage than I could have asked for," he said. "Now, let's make this day what it was meant to be." The guests began to move toward the church, their murmurs now tinged with awe rather than fear. Alejandra, still clutching the edge of her black jacket, followed Doña Rosa, her heart pounding with a mix of uncertainty and something she hadn't felt in years' hope. The wedding was about to begin, but the real miracle was unfolding in the hearts of those gathered, a testament to the power of understanding over division. The doors of the Santa María de Guadalupe parish stood open, their ancient wood framing a scene of fragile hope. Alejandra, her black attire stark against the vibrant flowers and soft candlelight within, hesitated at the threshold. Her heart pounded, a cacophony of doubt and curiosity, as she followed Doña Rosa to a bench at the back of the church. The protesters she had led just moments ago had vanished into the dusk, their banners abandoned on the cobblestone street outside. Father León XIV, his white vestments glowing under the church's warm light, stood at the altar, preparing to begin the wedding of Sofia Ramirez and Diego Morales. The crowd of nearly 100 guests, once frozen in fear, now buzzed with a mix of relief and awe, their whispers carrying a sense of something extraordinary unfolding. Sofia, radiant in her white dress, and Diego, steady and resolute, stood hand in hand at the front, their faces reflecting not just love for each other, but a quiet courage that had shifted the day's trajectory. Alejandra's presence, once a symbol of disruption, now felt like the edge of a miracle, teetering between redemption and retreat. As the organ began to play a soft hymn, Father León raised his hands, his voice resonating with a calm authority. "Dear brothers and sisters," he began, "today we gather to celebrate the union of Sofia and Diego, but we also witness something greater, the power of compassion to bridge even the deepest divides." His eyes briefly met Alejandra's, not with judgment, but with a gentle invitation to be part of this moment. Alejandra sank into the bench, her hands gripping the edge as if anchoring herself against a tide of emotions. Doña Rosa sat beside her, her weathered hand resting lightly on Alejandra's arm. "You don't have to do anything, child," she whispered. "Just let yourself feel what's here." Alejandra nodded, her throat tight. The church, with its high ceilings and flickering candles, felt both foreign and strangely comforting, a stark contrast to the cold, angry spaces she had inhabited for years. The guests, now settled in their pews, cast occasional glances her way, not with hostility, but with curiosity and, in some cases, warmth. A young woman in a bright blue dress leaned over and whispered, "Thank you for staying. It means something." Alejandra's breath caught, unsure how to respond to kindness she felt she didn't deserve. The weight of her past actions, leading a protest to disrupt this very moment, pressed heavily on her chest, but the sincerity around her began to chip away at that burden. Father Leo's voice drew her attention back to the altar. "Before we proceed with the vows," he said, "I'd like us to pause and offer a prayer for those who carry pain, for those who feel abandoned, and for those seeking a way back to peace." The congregation bowed their heads, and Alejandra felt a lump rise in her throat. She thought of her mother, whose faith had been shattered by betrayal, and the years she herself had spent building walls of anger to shield her grief. "We pray especially for Alejandra's mother," Father León continued, his voice steady but filled with empathy, "and for all who have suffered at the hands of human failure, may their memories guide us to build a world of healing and love." The words struck Alejandra like a lightning bolt, and she felt tears prick her eyes, hot and unbidden. She hadn't expected her mother's pain to be acknowledged so openly, so tenderly, in a place she had sworn to despise. Sofia turned slightly, catching Alejandra's eye from the altar. With a small, encouraging smile, she mouthed, "You're welcome here." Diego nodded beside her, his expression one of quiet solidarity. Alejandra's defenses wavered further, the anger that had fueled her for so long now clashing with a growing sense of belonging she couldn't quite name. The ceremony began, and as Sofia and Diego exchanged their vows, Alejandra found herself captivated by their words. "Sofia," Diego said, his voice steady, "I promise to stand by you, not just in joy, but in the moments when life tests us. Today taught me that love means opening our hearts, even when it's hard." Sofia's voice trembled with emotion as she responded, "Diego, I promise to be your partner in all things, to face every challenge with you, and to extend the same grace we've shown today to others who need it." The guests applauded softly, but for Alejandra, the words felt like a mirror, reflecting a truth she had long avoided. Love could be a choice, not just a feeling. As the couple exchanged rings, a young boy, no older than 10, slipped away from his mother in a nearby pew and approached Alejandra. He held out a small white flower, plucked from one of the altar decorations. "This is for you," he said shyly. "My mom says everyone deserves flowers on a happy day." Alejandra stared at the boy, her heart twisting. She took the flower, her fingers trembling, and managed a faint, "Thank you." The gesture, so simple yet so profound, broke something inside her. She clutched the flower tightly, its delicate petals a stark contrast to the darkness she had carried for years. Doña Rosa squeezed her hand. "See, child? Even the little ones know you belong." The ceremony concluded with Father León's blessing, his voice ringing with conviction. "By the power vested in me by the Church and the state of Jalisco, I pronounce you husband and wife. Diego, you may kiss your bride." The kiss was tender, filled with promise, and the church erupted in applause. But Sofia did something unexpected. Instead of walking down the aisle with Diego, she broke tradition and made her way to Alejandra's bench. The guests watched, their murmurs falling silent. "Alejandra," Sofia said, her voice soft but clear, "will you come to the reception? You're part of this day now." Alejandra shook her head, overwhelmed. "I can't. I don't belong there. I tried to ruin everything." Diego joined his bride, his smile warm. "You didn't ruin anything. You made this day mean more than we ever imagined." Doña Rosa leaned in. "The reception is in the Ramirez family garden. There's room for everyone, including you." Alejandra looked around, seeing the faces of strangers who no longer felt like enemies. A man in a suit, his hair graying at the temples, approached. "I'm Javier, Sofia's father," he said. "What you did today, staying, listening, it took courage. You're welcome with us." Alejandra's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back, afraid to let her vulnerability show. "I don't know how to act at a wedding," she admitted, her voice barely audible. Sofia laughed gently. "None of us do, not really. Just be yourself, that's enough." Father León, having removed his ceremonial vestments, approached in his simple black cassock. "Alejandra," he said, "I'd like to talk with you after the reception if you're willing. Not to preach, but to walk with you, wherever you're going." Alejandra nodded, her heart a tangle of fear and hope. "What if I can't do this? What if I go back to who I was?" she asked. Father León's eyes softened. "Then we'll meet you there too. You're not alone anymore." His words, simple yet profound, settled over her like a warm blanket, easing the chill of her doubts. The reception unfolded in the lush garden behind the Ramirez family home, strung with colorful lights and filled with the aroma of tamales and fresh flowers. Alejandra, still in her black clothes, felt out of place among the vibrant dresses and suits, but the guests greeted her with warmth. A young couple, Maria and Luis, sat with her at a table, sharing stories of their own struggles with faith. "We stopped going to church after our daughter got sick," Maria confided. "But Father León visited us every week, even when we pushed him away. He showed us that faith isn't about perfection, it's about showing up." Alejandra listened, her walls crumbling with each story. She realized that these people, like her, had faced pain and doubt, yet they had found a way to move forward. As the night wore on, Sofia approached with a small gift, a silver necklace with a tiny cross pendant. "This is for you," she said. "Not to change you, but to remind you of today, of the moment you chose to stay." Alejandra took the necklace, her fingers tracing the delicate chain. "Why are you all so kind to me?" she asked, her voice breaking. Diego, standing beside Sofia, answered, "Because we've all needed kindness at some point. Today, it's your turn." Alejandra slipped the necklace into her pocket, not ready to wear it but unwilling to let it go. The music shifted to a lively cumbia, and the guests flooded the dance floor. Doña Rosa nudged Alejandra. "Come on, child. You don't have to dance, but at least come closer to the joy." Alejandra hesitated, then followed, standing at the edge of the celebration, watching families laugh and couples sway under the starlit sky. 6 months later, Alejandra stood in her small apartment, a far cry from the dark, cluttered space it had once been. The walls, once covered with stark posters, now held colorful paintings of Mexican landscapes. A photo of her mother sat on a small table, next to the cross necklace Sofia had given her. She had enrolled in a community college program for social work, driven by a newfound passion to help others heal from trauma. Her days were filled with purpose, though not without struggle. Nights still brought doubts, memories of her mother's pain, and the weight of her own past. But she wasn't alone anymore. Father León had become a steady presence, meeting her for coffee to discuss life, faith, and forgiveness without pressure. Doña Rosa, now a surrogate grandmother, invited her to weekly dinners, where they shared stories and laughter over homemade mole. Today, Alejandra was preparing for another wedding at Santa María de Guadalupe, this time as an invited guest. It was the wedding of Sofia's cousin, Elena, who had heard the story of that fateful day and insisted Alejandra attend. As she adjusted her simple blue dress, a far cry from her old black attire, she felt a nervous excitement. Her phone buzzed with a message from Sofia. "Ready for another unforgettable day?" Alejandra smiled, typing back, "As ready as I'll ever be." She arrived at the church, pausing at the spot where she had once stood as a protester. The memory felt like a lifetime ago. Doña Rosa greeted her with a warm hug. "You're home, child," she said. Alejandra laughed softly. "I'm starting to believe that." The ceremony was beautiful, filled with love and laughter, but for Alejandra, the true miracle was her own transformation. As she watched Elena and her groom exchange vows, she whispered to herself, "Mom, I'm learning to live again, for both of us." The cross necklace, now worn proudly around her neck, gleamed softly in the candlelight, a symbol of a journey from darkness to light, forged by the courage of a community that refused to let her go.